What is going on, YouTube? I am Amedio602, and today we're going to talk about the Gulag in Call of Duty Warzone. Hello and welcome. I am Amedio602, and if this is your first time on the channel and you want to improve at Call of Duty, then start now by subscribing and ringing the notification bell so you don't miss out on tips, tricks, and tactics to make you a better player. The topic of today's video is going to be the Gulag in Call of Duty Warzone. Today I'm going to share with you 10 tips for winning in the Gulag, but first you need to know what the Gulag is. As far as Battle Royale games go, the Gulag is a unique feature to Call of Duty Warzone, and it gives you a chance to respawn your character. One chance. The first time you die in Call of Duty Warzone, instead of being eliminated from the game like you would be in most Battle Royale games, your character is captured and taken to a place called the Gulag. And in the Gulag, you get the chance to 1v1 against another player who has also died, with the winner being able to redeploy into the Warzone. The first thing to know about the Gulag is that it does close after the 4th circle in the game, which is about 20 minutes. So as long as you're dying within the first 20 minutes or so of the game, you're going to get a chance to go into the Gulag. But unfortunately, if you die after that 4th circle has closed, you don't get to go to the Gulag. When you first spawn into the Gulag, you're going to get put into a holding cell with the other competitors. Once it's your turn to fight, you're going to be put into a 1v1 against another player. The winner of that 1v1 will immediately redeploy. You can either kill the other player, or you can capture the overtime flag in the center of the map to be declared the victor. The loadout you get in the Gulag is semi-random, and typically it's going to consist of either a pistol or a shotgun, along with lethal and tactical equipment. The game will show you the loadout and give you a brief countdown timer before the game begins. Once the fight begins, you have 15 seconds to kill or be killed. After that, the overtime flag appears. And to capture the overtime flag and win the game, you need to stand on it for about 3 seconds. Standing on the overtime flag for about 3 seconds is enough time to capture it and be declared the victor. You also need to keep an eye out for your enemies trying to capture the flag, and you can tell when they get on the flag because a white circle begins to fill around it. In my experience though, if you see this happening, it's probably already too late to make a move, unless you're very close to the overtime flag. Once that 15-second timer expires, you want to be able to see the overtime flag, or maybe even be on top of it in an attempt to capture it quickly. Now for the best part of the video, I'm going to get into my tips to help you win more in the Gulag. The first thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of is that there are 3 different versions of the Gulag map. The first variation of the Warzone Gulag map I like to call the U map. On the U-shaped map, the flag is in the center of the U-shaped wall. In the second variation of the map, which I like to call the O-shaped map, the flag is again in the middle of what's almost an O shape, except there's no top or bottom. I guess you could also call this the parentheses map. The third and final variation of the Gulag map is what I like to call the H map. In all 3 of the Gulag variants, the flag is in the center of the map. And my first big tip for you is to learn all of the variants of the map, and learn which playstyles are most effective in each variant. For instance, with the U-shaped map, which is probably my favorite by the way, you can use the little half wall as cover to try to pick off a player who's trying to capture the flag. On the O map, the sightlines in the middle of the map are blocked off, so you might want to just run up and hide behind one of those walls. And on the H map, things are pretty wide open, so you might be able to pick off a nice long-range kill at the very beginning of the match. You can tell which version of the map you're going to be playing on just by paying attention in the staging area, and that's where my next couple of tips are going to come in handy as well. When you're in the staging area, you can spray paint potential opponents, and if you color them with a nice bright green, for example, they become a whole lot easier to see when you're in the actual match. But you don't have to take my word for it. Watch the gameplay in the background to see for yourself just what happens to this player, who happens to be named Carol Baskins.
Going back to the front line. Burned it.
Haha. While you're up there cheering and jeering and spray painting, you can also be an incredible help to your teammate if your teammate is already fighting down in the Gulag. And most people already know this, but it's really helpful if you can give callouts to your teammates, or hit the enemies with rocks to stun them. The player hit by the rock will take 1 hit point of damage as well as suffer a minor stun effect. If you take damage in the Gulag, it takes your character 6 1/3 seconds before they heal. And the damage from rocks counts on this too, so For instance, if your teammate is fighting someone in the Gulag and they shoot them with one shot, and then 3.5 seconds later you throw a rock and hit them, then that 6 1/3 second timer restarts, and it's going to take your opponent that much longer to heal, and that 6 1/3 second is good for 50 hit points. If you've taken more than 50 points of damage, you need to wait about another 2/3 of a second before you're healed to full, which means the total time to heal in the Gulag can be up to 7 seconds. Just remember that if you throw a rock at someone who's already wounded, it's going to reset their healing timer. In between the staging area and before your match starts, you get about a 3-second timer, which is going to show your loadout. This is going to show you the gun that you're going to be using, as well as lethals and tacticals. It's important to pay very close attention to your loadout so you know what to expect throughout the match. If you've already looked at which Gulag map variant you're going to be playing on, and you know which gun you're going to be using, that should help you come up with a pretty good plan for how you want to attack the enemy. Just be sure that whatever you come up with, you're playing to the strengths of the weapon, and you know the strengths and weaknesses of each weapon available in the Gulag. Something to be aware of while planning your strategy is that the lethals and tacticals will not be available immediately when the match starts. You have to wait 4 seconds for them to spawn in. In other words, when the timer at the top of the screen is at 11 seconds, that is the first moment where you can use a lethal or a tactical in the Gulag. And for those first 4 seconds, I usually like to run about 1/3 of the way up the map and then just kind of sit there and wait to see what I can see. If I have a pretty good general idea of where the enemy is, then I'm going to go ahead and throw a grenade or a Molotov or whatever at them. And if not, I'm just going to keep that in my pocket until I do know about where they are. This is also a pretty good time to mention that you should be familiar with all of the lethals, all of the tacticals, and all of the weapons available in the Gulag. And this is all just basic gun familiarity with the game. For anyone who's been on the channel for a while, you've probably already seen at least one of my gunfight tips videos, and if not, I'll go ahead and link one for you on the screen right now. These videos focus on things like centering, gun familiarity, using a headset, talking in team chat, and other essential skills to master in Call of Duty. This is also a pretty good time to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this video, so that you don't miss out on other videos like it. And with my shameless self-plug out of the way, we're going to move on to tip number 7. My next tip goes back to the timing and the healing and the fact that it takes 6 1/3 seconds to heal. If you get wounded right off the bat, it's a good idea to try to back off the fight and wait for that 6 seconds. In a lot of cases, what's going to happen is the enemy is going to rush you and you'll be able to finish them off mid-sprint. And sort of the opposite is also true. If you manage to land a shot on your enemy and they try to run away, what you want to do is you want to try to trap them so that they can't get away from you, because it's only going to take 6 or 7 very short seconds for them to be back to full health and ready to go. This is the type of situation where if you've managed to save your lethal or tactical equipment, you can go ahead and put the final nail in their coffin. And another thing you want to try to do, this is going to be a little bit hard to explain, but bear with me for a second. You don't want to stay in your spawn, but you also don't want to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. While it does have things like Peeker's Advantage, as does any online first-person shooter, Modern Warfare is a very slow-paced tactical game. Tactical, of course, is a code word for campy. And what you want to do is you want to use that to your advantage as much as possible. Now, of course, you don't want to be one of those guys who just sits in his spawn the whole game. Not because it's a terrible thing to do, but really just because it's an easy thing to counter for anyone with a frag grenade. But rather what you want to do is you want to kind of push and pull. When I say push and pull, what I mean is you want to push when you have the advantage and you can finish the fight. And if you don't have the advantage, you want to pull back until you can regain the advantage. And sometimes this happens because an opponent makes a mistake. Other times it happens because, well, you're camping in a corner. Finally, for my last tip of the day, I'm going to tell you that you need to be unpredictable. If you just sprint straight into your opponent's spawn, chances are you're not going to win very many Gulag fights. Likewise, if you just sit in your spawn and don't move at all, you're not going to win very many fights against good players either. The real key to winning in the Gulag is being unpredictable and thinking faster than your opponents and making them react to you instead of you having to react to them. And once you master that, go ahead and check out one of my other videos on the screen right now to take your Warzone gameplay to the next level. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. As always, thank you very much for watching.